This was a big budget, far bigger than expected, and a massive change in terms of taxation and in terms of spending. This is showing you, going back to the 1970s, just how much each different fiscal event, so budgets and autumn statements, have raised taxes or indeed cut them. Look where the bars are. And look at this time around, OK? So this particular budget raised taxes an awful lot. In fact, by the biggest amount that we have seen going all the way back to 1993. That was Norman Lamont post-Black Wednesday. Well, this, in terms of raising taxes, is actually not that far away from that. And, of course, we're talking about higher national insurance, we're talking about higher inheritance tax, we're talking about higher capital gains tax. But add it all up, and you're talking about the burden of overall taxation here rising considerably. It was expected to rise. So this is Jeremy Hunt's plans back in March. The tax burden was going to go up. But when the Labour Party gave their manifesto, they said, yeah, we're going to raise taxes a wee bit higher than that. But what we just heard about today was not just a wee bit higher, it was massively higher. That is a significant jump in terms of UK taxation, taking the total tax burden, this is your incidence, just how much we're all paying in terms of all taxes, to the highest rate that we've ever seen on record. Now, it's worth just saying the UK, when it comes to comparing us with other countries, we are more or less mid-table when it comes to just how heavily taxed we are. That's the UK, that red bar there. And you can see other countries like Iceland, Japan and the rest are kind of around the same level. What does this do? It takes us up a little bit. So we go up from being kind of mid-table to slightly higher mid-table as a result of this, but still below some Scandinavian countries or Germany, but way above, for instance, Ireland and the United States. But all of that being said, the reason for this higher taxation is in part for the government to spend more, in particular spend money on investment. So the previous government, their plan was to cut investment in the coming years. Look at where Rachel Reeves is planning to push investment. Higher investment in the near term, and then still considerably higher investment in the Conservative plans looking out into the future. But here's the concern. There's actually two concerns for the Chancellor. First of all, it's not really turning into quite as much growth as she might have liked. This is the growth forecast from the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, last time around. So growth going up, and economic growth is really kind of what matters. And you invest more in order to generate more growth so we have money in our pockets. And bear in mind, this government says it wants to have the highest growth rate in the G7. That was last time around. Look at this time, OK? So the bars come up. They're a little bit higher in the first 2 years, but look at 2026, 27 and so on. Downgraded, 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 and weaker growth off into the future than expected. That goal of trying to get the highest growth in the G7, that looks very unlikely indeed. The other thing I think that will concern the Chancellor is this, the market reaction. Now, we look at government bond rates. It's how much people charge the UK to lend money to them, essentially. Remember, after the Truss budget, they went up through the roof. This time around, OK, so there's a 10-year government bond rate. They stayed relatively low during the speech. But once those documents were published and people started to look at the numbers, in particular all that borrowing, just look at that line. It went up. Not enough, perhaps, to show anything like panic, but definitely a considerable level of disquiet about all that extra borrowing that's coming from the Chancellor.